Hi everyone, welcome to an FS Elite interview, and I am so excited and delighted to be talking all things FS Expo. Unlike
Yeah.
these two who are not wearing FS Expo t-shirts, despite being the co-founders.
I did ask, I wanted on the record, I did ask Phil, and he's like, I'm wearing a generic collared shirt. And so then I decided to match that because I'm not even sure if he has any of our Expo merch. I don't think he has
It's
any.
because
Do you
my
just burn
Expo
it right
polo.
after the show, or what do you do?
No, it's in the wash. I have to get ready for this year.
Because you've been wearing it so much.
That's right. More like I put it in the corner at the end of last year, and I have to go dig it up.
Yeah.
Collecting dust as we speak, but you need to get that thing undust because we're less than a month away from the show right now. FlightSimExpo 2024 happening in Vegas in June. Um, I mean, before we dive into kind of what to expect from the show, and that's what this interview is all going to be about, is just this show. But maybe you could just give a very brief introduction into exactly who you guys are, maybe a bit of your flight simulation experience and real world experience. And Evan, we'll start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Been around flight sim for I guess what feels like a long time now. Started out as a sort of flight sim pilot, decided to become a real pilot, work for the airlines now outside of the Flight Sim Expo, Flight Sim Association stuff that we do every now and again. And because of flight sim, really, that's kind of why I got my start in the aviation industry. And so really that was the main reason for us kind of starting this show and one of the main reasons why we just keep doing it. And right now in flight sim, because of the real world flying, I tend to do more of the controlling side. So you'll find me on VATSIM. I'm a Boston Center controller on there, probably way too much of the time if I'm honest, but at least I'm occasionally doing some flight sim expo things while I'm controlling.
Nice, thank you. And Phil, yourself?
Yeah, so similar start, like Evan was mentioning. I got into flight simulation probably 15 years ago now. It seems like I've lost count,
It's been a
and
minute,
that
isn't it?
kind of, yeah, that's right. I guess 2002. So actually more like over 20 years, I guess, really. But my background is aerospace engineering, so kind of like Evan, who started it off with flight simulation and had that kind of lead into a career in aviation. I have a similar story where I started off doing flight simulation. I got a private pilot's license, and I still fly recreationally. And I'm involved in aviation from multiple facets. But then instead of going the commercial pilot route, I decided to go the engineering route. So I do aerospace engineering as a career, and so I work at various companies, some of which you know, some of which you probably don't know. But I do basically aircraft handling qualities and stability control analysis on new types of aircraft. And that sort of thing. So it's a fun career, but it's really been informed by flight simulation, sort of the knowledge of how the broader aerospace and aviation ecosystem works, which is something that I definitely credit to all of the sort of side projects that I've done throughout the years with relation to the flight simulation industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think from coming to your shows in the past, I think it's very evident where both of your backgrounds kind of also help to form what becomes the basis and the foundations of the show, from the organizational efforts to the communication and kind of being on stage presenting and introducing things as well. So I've always found it really fascinating how we can take the real world experiences and still apply it to flight simulation, even if it's not necessarily directly developing those specific products as well. So yeah, and thus Flight Sim Expo was kind of born. You've been doing this now for what, 5 years, is it?
This will be our fifth show. I think it's been like 7 or 8 years because we had COVID in there and stuff like that. But this is our fifth show coming up in Vegas, which is hard to believe. It's crazy, actually.
Yeah, back to Vegas. I mean, that was where the original Flight Sim Expo show was. So
Where it all started. Yeah, exactly.
different hotel.
Different hotel. Yeah, for the like third time this year. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. We'll talk about some of those troubles in just a moment, but I really want to just kick things off. Hopefully, people who are watching this are kind of on that fence at the moment. You know, they know about the show,
Hopefully they already decided to come, but if not, then yes, hopefully they're on the fence.
but if not,
Yeah.
tell them why. Why should they come? If imagine you two weren't actually putting on the event and you are kind of that attendee thinking of maybe not come in. What would you be excited for? What are you looking forward to from the show, and why should people come to the expo this year?
Yeah, well, my problem like 5 years into this is that I've met so many fun people at the show that now it's like my reason to go is because I just want to go see all those people again. Like there's people there who I talk to all year round, but see once a year at this event, get to shake hands, get to actually meet. I've developed some real friendships with people, and now, like you randomly, even though we live apparently across an ocean, I see to see you every other month, right? So it's like these kinds of things just sort of have happened organically for me. And right now, really, it's the people that we get to meet there and all the just stuff that's going on over the course of the weekend. So that's me having been to the show before. If you're somebody who hasn't been to the show before, I think it's about being able to just get your hands on stuff and try things. Like, where else in the world can you go to a room? There's going to be a few thousand other flight simmers there. There's going to be every kind of flight sim controller you can imagine, virtual reality. There's going to be Xbox. There's going to be mobile flight simulators. Like, anything and everything in this hobby that you have ever thought about wanting to try is right there at the show, and you can literally try any and all of it over the course of those couple days. Then you start adding in all the seminars where there's different how-to experiences, people are giving educational talks, people are releasing new products. You can meet all the developers who make the stuff that you know and love. I think on Friday, especially with the new product reveals, like being in the room when somebody drops a new product and people are like gasping and like
Mm.
reacting to it, and you can even see like people are typing in the chat, and like you're watching as the person beside you is typing like that. Where else can we do that? Like, this hobby is so virtual that shows like this and FS Weekend in Europe are really the only places where you can do anything like that. So if I hadn't been to this show before, it was sort of the first time I was thinking about doing this, those are probably a few of the reasons for me. So there, I mentioned it all. Phil, is there anything left?
I was going to say, I
Did I
think with
steal all
your
of your
intro
stuff?
there, it's more of like, why would you not go to the show, kind of
There you
with what
go.
Evan just rattled off there. I think, like you were mentioning, though, we find that it's a pretty common story that people will come their first year because, as you mentioned, there's a developer or something they want to see,
Yeah.
and then they'll stay for the friends, right? So there's sort of a side element to this where you come for one reason, you actually meet some people that it might be local, maybe they're just into the same things as you are, and then you end up finding yourself coming back to hang out with those folks. And like Evan said, even just like ourselves personally, there are certain people that we see at FlightSimExpo every year where it's almost like a big family reunion almost. There's some people that we really were going to say hi to those people. And I think that that's a really important element. Now that we've been doing this for 5 years, we're actually starting to see more of the longer term relationship piece of this start to play out. And that's really, really, I think, interesting to see as showrunners, and just as another element of like why it's really important to be able to go to shows like this. We see and we hear from people who say, I've been here 1 year, I'm coming every single year from now on because I want to meet, I want to talk to so and so, that, you know, otherwise you might not actually be able to meet with that person because this is sort of the common interest that you have. And maybe although you live across an ocean or on different sides of the country, this is the reason to try and get together for 1 weekend out of the year, kind of like at a reunion, like I mentioned. So again, between the people and the things to do on site, I think it's a fairly compelling story as to why you want to show up if you're remotely interested in flight simulation or even aviation more broadly.
Yeah, absolutely. Or even if you are not even sure what flight simulation is, this is the perfect place
Yeah.
to kind of get your start from it all. Where better to learn about the hobby and to learn about the people and to learn about the media, to learn about this content creators all in one place is to come to FlightSimExpo. I know it's probably a hefty investment, but if you're local to Vegas, and it's just down the road, you know, it's a great weekend to really indulge yourself and get the most from everything, plus get a whole bunch of discount on things from developers and watch the latest product reveals. um, I always get excited. I get excited to meet the people, I get excited to see my team, I get excited to see you guys and all the other developers and content creators, and obviously to meet people as well and to make new connections. So yeah, I think the people and the community is a big aspect to come into the show. um, and perhaps that's probably why you've done this for so many years now, despite some of the challenges you faced. I mean, you mentioned earlier about the third hotel for this year. I mean, originally this year was planned for a different hotel. I'm not going to mention its name to confuse things, but that was kind of a big thing to happen earlier this year. You know, you faced a lot of challenges. Why do you continue to do Flight Sim Expo?
Yeah, I ask myself that every day. No, I mean, I think it really comes back to what I said though. Like, it's like if we didn't make this show, then like where would I go every June, and where would I meet and hang out with all these people once a year? Like, we just need this for our hobby and for our community somewhere in North America, for us to be able to gather, for us to be able to showcase all of what flight simulation is, for us to present this to real world aviation. Like this year and in previous years, but especially this year, we're hoping to have even more people from, say, the FAA or from other real world groups, airlines, flight schools, recognizing the importance of this stuff. Like, we're seeing more and more in real world aviation a realization that actually flight sim is kind of for real and it's not a game. It actually is a very legitimate training tool. So real world aviation especially, you can't really say to somebody from the FAA or from a regulator, hey, this stuff works. Like they have to come to the show, they have to see it in practice, they have to see there's a pilot sitting there, there's a controller sitting there, they're talking to each other, they're interacting, all these other pilots are doing the same thing. It really crystallizes for people when you actually see this stuff. And so I think really beyond anything else, like for me, that's why I do it. It's like we need to have this and nobody else is doing it, so we better keep doing it or we won't have it anymore.
Yeah, I'd agree. And Phil, what about for yourself? I mean, you equally have just as
I just
much.
make him. I know where he lives now, so he's got no choice. He's in forever.
Yeah, I think there's, part of it is also to give back to the community too, right? Evan was mentioning how I think it's really important that the community has an in-person event and an opportunity like this to get together. And so I guess if we don't do it, I don't know if somebody else will. If so, call me. But I think there's just a really interesting opportunity here to try and make something that will help, I think, bring the community together as a whole, and make the community become better over time. And this is sort of, I guess, our contribution to that. And at least so far as I can tell, it's working, and people seem to enjoy it. So I think, why do we keep doing it year over year? Because it seems like it's a worthwhile thing to be doing, and people tell us they want to keep going. And I think as long as we keep getting those signals, we'll keep doing it. And then in addition to there, of course, being some more practical kind of platform-based experiences where, like Evan said, it's really important and critical to have some place that you can bring somebody from a regulator or from an airline and say, hey, look, like this is real. This is not just a game. There's actually real benefits. And Evan and myself are both products of that, having aviation careers that are sort of born out of flight simulation. So all of that, I think, is a really compelling story. But it really, I think, having the in-person opportunity kind of puts the punctuation on that story that you wouldn't have otherwise. Because again, just trying to talk about this in a virtual sense or trying to send somebody a pamphlet with pictures doesn't really do the same thing justice.
Yeah, I would agree. And the in-person aspect is, I think, certainly the most important part because that's where the connections are actually made and you can ask
Yeah.
questions.
I mean, the other thing that I don't want to pontificate too much, but like I do this also personally because I learn a lot doing it. Like Evan and I walk away after having done every show being like, how can we do that better? And so
Yeah.
I think it's really important that you're just from sort of like just an interesting perspective of like what would we like to try and do as individuals. There's an interesting challenge to this. So when we have things like, again, a hotel decided to close down on us. Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's something that doesn't happen every single year, but there are things like that. Like, there's always some sort of stumbling block. Like, no show's ever going to be perfect, and so that's just sort of like naturally, I think, part of the building process of the show. And again, try and walk out of those experiences having learned something from it and make it better for the future.
And I mean, it's like those things are annoying, but also I don't know. I have this thing like in my real life now where kind of I look at like big companies and the way that sometimes they react to things, and I'm like, why the heck do they act that way? Like, there's no need for people to be like that. And so sometimes when we have these weird challenges that come up, it's kind of fun to be like, okay, well, how would we handle this? Or even in this case, it's not just how hypothetically would we handle it, but how did we handle it? And did people react well to that? What was the feedback like? We talk to the attendees, we have Discord, and we say, are we doing a good job? Are we communicating well? If we get a whole bunch of emails back to something we've sent out and people are asking questions, like we get that immediate feedback. Okay, we didn't do a very good job communicating that, so let's go back and think about how we can do that better. Like there's just a real element of this that you can do something and right away see the feedback from it and then keep evolving, that I really enjoy. So those challenges that come up over the course of the year, definitely a moment where you're like, not this again. Like, come on, I just want to live my life here. But it's a lot of fun. The chaos, there's a little bit of fun in the chaos for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's over the years I've come to pretty much every show. The only show I couldn't come to was because of COVID restrictions,
Yeah.
but it's been really great as both a attendee and an exhibitor to see the changes and the evolution and things improving. Like the fact now all the seminars are, or like all the product announcement things are happening on the Friday, I think is a great idea because now it frees up that weekend for kind of more in-depth conversations, or you can talk about what you just saw at the Friday thing over the weekend and give that feedback immediately to the developers as well. And just little tweaks and stuff in terms of the communication, or the fact that we now do these kind of big exhibitor reveal things kind of around February, March time over the last couple of years has been, I think,
Yeah.
a fantastic response from the community, and gets people hyped up and people excited. And actually, speaking of kind of these big names, do you think that's kind of a reason people attend outside of the community aspect? And have you seen maybe kind of an increase in attendee numbers so far registering because of kind of the sheer volume of different exhibitors we announced kind of earlier this year?
Yeah, so hopefully, if everything holds, and it should, by the time that this video goes out, we will have announced that more people have registered this year than had checked in Houston. And that's really cool. So that means obviously we're on track to be the busiest and biggest event we've ever had, because Houston was our previous biggest event. And we've still got a few days to go. So hopefully people keep on registering, and we should see the biggest Flight Sim Expo that we've ever had. And I definitely think developers, support from the developers and support from the community is a huge part of that. I mean, really, what's interesting about the flight sim world is, like, almost without exception, and maybe even without exception, all the developers are just like indie people who kind of like started making something cool and were like, I wonder if like other people might want this, and they put it out there and a bunch of people started buying it, and they're like, okay, that's cool, I guess I'll keep doing this. And that's kind of the story with like every flight sim developer that we talk to. And so when we're trying to speak to the developers about coming to the show, like every one of them will say, I don't sell anything at this show, like that's not what it's about. But it's like, I want to go up there on the stage, I want to announce something on the Friday, I want to see what people actually think of that. Like, there's nowhere else in the world that you can stand on the stage and go, here's my idea. And right away, there's that instant feedback. It's different than if you're posting it on the Discord or you're sharing it on a live stream. Like, you just don't get that same real idea of like, what does every single person in the room think? And then you go Saturday and Sunday, and people who were in that room on Friday, as you just said, can come to you, can talk to you, can say, hey, that was a really cool idea. What about if you added this to it? And like, where else in the world really can you get that? So I think that's a huge part of it. And having those big names and small names, people from one off, I'm a developer on the side and I do this project out of my basement and I started 3D printing something, all the way through to some of the biggest names in our industry like Microsoft or Laminar Research. Having that full spectrum of developers supporting this show is critical. I mean, there wouldn't be a show, I don't think, without developers. Like, community plays a big role in it, but if you just said we're going to meet up and talk about flight sim, but there were no exhibitors there, I'm not sure that it would work.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, we can't forget as well, it's not just the developers who are announcing things on the Friday. We've got a whole weekend of panels and
Yeah.
seminars from, people not just within flight simulation, but you mentioned earlier about real world aviation. Do you want to talk us a little bit about who to expect and what sort of panels we can hear from this year?
Yeah, so this year's schedule, we've got two different stages going on, as you well know, Callum. So one of them is in the Brasilia room. That's our stage where everything will be live streamed and recorded. So starting on Friday, we've got the FS Expo Friday product announcement seminars. And we've told developers that really is supposed to be come on stage and announce something, whether it's a new product, a substantial update, previews we haven't seen before. Really, we're trying to make that day into something that's really, really cool to be part of, so that people can go home and say, I was in the room when this got announced. And then 6 months from now, when that product comes out, you can say the same thing. So that's Friday. And then on the weekend, starting on Saturday, and then continuing, of course, until Sunday, in that same room is a series of kind of more educational focused seminars and talks that will kind of span everything. So we've got stuff like, how do I fly an RNAV approach? How do I get onto VATSIM and connect to virtual air traffic control? We've got a panel discussion featuring some of the biggest content creators in our community, talks about helicopters, talks about how to actually improve your basic flying skills right in the simulator. On Sunday morning, 9 a.m., kicking off Sunday, we're actually going to build a PC live on the stage, something I've wanted to do for 5 years now, and finally I managed to get it. So the idea here is like, and this is kind of crazy, so we'll see if it happens, but the idea is like, there's going to be a table, there's going to be a shell of a computer, and somebody is going to put all the parts in that computer. We'll have a bunch of cameras so you can see it, and within an hour, they better be able to turn that computer on and actually demonstrate how easy that is. So that'll be a great thing for simmers like me who have always wanted to know how to build their own computer but have no idea where to start. Like, we're going to do it for you right in front of you, and then you'll be able to win that computer afterwards. So all kinds of really fun stuff going on that stage throughout the course of the weekend. But in addition to that, we've also got a second stage, which this year is happening on the exhibit hall. And there's some media company that I think is sponsoring that. I'm trying to remember the name there. Flight Sim FS. Phil, do you remember who that is? FS somebody.
FS
Yeah,
Light?
I'm drawing blank.
Do you want to talk about that, Cal?
Yeah, or you've just turned this around on me. Um, so yeah, I mean, so yeah, FS Elite, we've got the big stage, well, big stage, relative, I guess, in
Second biggest stage.
second biggest stage, but still fairly large in terms of scale
Yeah,
within the main exhibit hall itself, which is super cool and
yeah.
something that we've talked about for years now, but it's finally happening. And basically, our plan is to kind of be, in addition to what you're doing in the big room, is just having developers come on stage and a few seminars as well, which is really cool. We've got Sporties and Infinite Flight. We've got talks about how you can get started, how you can fly even if you do have kind of a visual impairment as well,
That'd
which
be
I
cool.
think is
Yeah.
just going to be incredible. I know she did a very similar seminar a couple of years ago as
San
well, I
Diego.
think, and yeah, just phenomenal about what she talks about. So that's happening. We got developers doing interviews with us, and also if you're at the show as well, you can ask them questions and see if they reply. That's up to them because we can't control that. So I know that's something our community have always asked is how can they be more involved with our interviews. So this is our way of doing that for you guys. We've got product demos as well. So not saying too much just yet because I think we've got a few cool announcements still to come. But yeah, you'll be able to see some of the newest products which aren't even out yet being demoed live on stage, and the developers are going to talk to you about kind of the nuances as well. So yeah, it's going to be a weekend packed full of that stuff, and we've also got a few extra surprises here and there as well, which I'm sure the community will love. But yeah, we are right in the main exhibit hall, right near the concession stand where you can get your food and drink. So grab a sandwich, grab a coffee, come watch the latest interview or product demo. And yeah, it's just yet another element to Flight Sim Expo. I hope everyone's going to enjoy, and we managed to pull off.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, another one of these elements and a good example of something that we're trying for the first time this year. This was an idea that Nick Sudoukos from FlightFX has talked me into, and I still think he's crazy, but we'll see because I think it's gonna be interesting to try to figure out how does the sound actually play, and can you hear well enough, and can the exhibitors who are right next to the stage, are they comfortable with this? So we'll see. I think it could definitely go either way, but it's one of these things where it's like everybody tells me it's possible. We talked to several AV companies. We talked to Nick. He says he sees it all the time to do this stage on the show floor. And I'm like, I don't know. So this is a great example of we're going to do it. We're going to see how it works. We're going to see what the feedback is. And then does it continue next year? Does it get moved to a side room, right? Like this is the cool thing that we get to do
yeah.
as organizers of the show, and one of the real reasons that I think it's a lot of fun, and really grateful to be working with you on this, mostly because this way I don't have to do it, but also because who better to actually go and be doing these developer interviews, Q&As, than a company that basically does this for a living, right? You guys break the news, you guys have the community, so why would we do that when you guys do such a great job with it and I don't have to do it?
But yeah, no, we're excited. It's just another technical thing, but as you've said, this has always been a learning experience. It's going to be a learning experience for us and for you guys. And actually, just thinking of things that you've done for the first time last year and are coming back this year, we've got the VR Experience Center, and also the ability to kind of build your own little cockpit parts as well, which is going to be cool. Phil, maybe you can tell us what feedback did you get from attendees last year and why that sort of thing is returning this year?
Yeah, well, you can imagine by the fact that they are returning that we got pretty positive feedback about those items. So the feedback that we got around the home cockpit building workshops and probably just the activities in general was that it really enhanced the show experience. So, first couple of years, the focus was primarily on the weekend, right? And then we kind of started building out the Friday. So those of you who have been to the show before probably remember there's a thing called Captain's Corner, which was sort of in-depth specialized seminars. That then kind of became more general, and now it's the product announcement seminars that we're talking about this year. So similar kind of idea we've been trying to build of like, how do we get folks to understand or to think about not just making this be, hey, the show is, Friday, Saturday, Sunday from 9 to 5, basically. But there's really more to it. That's what the activities are meant to try and bring. So the activities, of course, that we mentioned, so the home cockpit building workshops, and also this year we have X-plane focused seminars and workshops as well, so people can learn things like how to actually build an aircraft in X-plane and go fly it. That sort of thing will be happening at FlightSimExpo on both Saturday and Sunday. And then, of course, we also have our evening activities and sort of more excursion type ideas. So we actually have our air traffic control tours that are happening on both the Friday and the Monday. So people can actually go over to the Las Vegas airport. They can tour the TRACON, tour the air traffic control tower. And then we also have other more excursions that are sort of kind of focused on meeting other people as well. So in the evening on actually Friday morning, we also have some other excursions that are going to be to a place called Dig This Vegas, which I think is super cool. Basically, it's like a playground for excavation equipment, so you can go and like drive a backhoe and excavator. So I can't see why that wouldn't be popular.
And there's
And
an
then,
open
of
bar
course,
also.
and there's an open
Just
bar.
saying.
So,
Because
add
it's
those two things
Vegas. Why
together
would
and
there
it's going
not
to
be
be
an open
great.
bar there? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then we'll also have some more activities on Saturday evening as well for people who like to go out to the strip and kind of do more of a night on the town. And then, of course, don't forget that the Rio actually hosts multiple shows on site, two of which are Penn and Teller, so the famous comedy magic show. and then also Comedy Cellar, which is sort of like a stand-up comedy type event. So both of those are happening on site at the Rio. So if you're somebody who'd rather not go to the Strip, maybe that's not quite your scene, you can of course hang out still at the hotel itself, and you can get discounted tickets through our website to all of that. So all of these things, as I mentioned, have really been trying to help bolster the show experience and try and help offer more for attendees who are saying, hey, I'm on the fence about going. Is it really worth it just for, again, touring the exhibit hall during these hours? Like, no, there's actually an entire end-to-end, 3+ day weekend worth of events here that would help make the argument that it's really worth going to FlightSimExpo. And to what we were saying earlier, these are the kinds of activities that are going to help perhaps help you meet somebody that you might then want to become friends with over the long term. And again, those are experiences that as we've seen, have been really important for the show, and just one of the reasons why people would want to come come back year over year. So all these things are again geared towards really trying to help make the show experience just be that much better and that much more substantial for those who are attending.
And what better place than Vegas for having all these additional on-site or off-site activities as well, because Vegas is its own playground as it is. So even if you aren't interested in any of those activities, I'm pretty sure there are going to be individual community driven and planned events that if you're part of your Discord, that people can kind of easily say, hey, I'm going to be going to this place at this time. Does anyone want to come along? And I'm sure I've seen plenty of things like that happen in previous years. So I'm definitely sure something will happen in Vegas because there's just so much to do in Vegas.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So we've covered an awful lot, and I think it's just a testament to kind of just exactly what this show is all about. There's flight simulation, there's real world aviation, there's hardware, there are seminars, there are talks, there are activities. There's just a lot for people to do. And the only way to really experience it is to actually come to the show. Um, there is obviously other options for people who just literally cannot come whatsoever. Maybe you just want to give a brief description of kind of the online event only and what people can expect from that if coming to the show just really isn't practical for them this year.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Obviously, the in-person experience is by far the best experience, and we do try to make it a really easy show to get to. Like we've talked about a lot, there is a lot going on, but if you want to make it like really, really easy, like you just fly yourself to Vegas, you get one taxi from the airport to the Rio Hotel, and you can spend the rest of the 3 days there, and you'll have plenty to do. You only need to register for FlightSimExpo once. You get access to the entire 3-day show if you purchase the entire event ticket. You can do all this stuff that we've just been talking about. There are a couple of the workshops and stuff that are separate add-ons. If it's your first year at the show, you really don't need to do those anyway because they're kind of more for the people who've been in sim for a little longer. So if all you want to do is fly yourself there, spend 3 nights at the Rio and come to our show, like that will definitely give you plenty to do. So we've really tried to make it super, super easy to come to the show. But hey, I get it. Not everyone can make it to Vegas. It is a long trip for people like yourself, Callum. And so for those who can't come to the show, we are once again going to be doing as much as we can to share the experience with folks from everywhere. So all of our FS Expo Friday seminars will be live streamed for free on our YouTube channel as well as on our website for Flight Sim Association captains and for people who've purchased our online event access. And then as I mentioned, that online event access, it's $15. That gives you access to watch everything from Saturday and Sunday on our website completely ad free. You can watch it live, you can watch it recorded until August. And more than anything else, it's just a great way to support the show. Like this whole purpose of running the show is to help support our hobby, to get developers to show up, to have them make big announcements, to give us this world of fun to do for this weekend. And so if you can't make it to the show, would really appreciate if you can help us support being able to run the online event. It does take a crazy amount of money. We've got to do a lot in terms of getting the logistics there. The AV company, there's a lot of work that goes into putting in that online show and really trying to make sure the audio sounds good, the video is good quality. Like we want this to be an exceptional product. I don't want it to look like there's someone in the crowd just holding a camcorder. It's supposed to be good, and that does take a lot of money and takes a lot of work. So if you can't make it to the show, one small thing that you can do to support is to purchase that online only registration for $15. Or if you decide you want to purchase our FSA Captain subscription, which is $3 a month, you get access to all those recordings totally free. So that's a nice, easy way for anybody from around the world who can't make it to Vegas to still support the show and get a little taste for what it's like. And of course, beyond that, I'm sure you guys at FS Elite and other content creators will be sharing the experience, doing videos, streams, interviews, much as you've done in the past. Not the same, I know, but pretty close second.
Yeah, I think we all try, and we all have different perspectives, and that's what I love most about having so many content creators there. Whether that be us as a media outlet or your favorite streamer, everyone does something a little bit differently, and you get to see lots of different flavors of the show. And maybe that will convince you to come to Flight Sim Expo 2025, which obviously we'll talk about another time because I'm sure right now the focus is purely on kind of the current show.
We could tease 2025 a bit, right, Phil?
It's happening.
That's the
The
teaser
venue's
tease.
booked. I know where it's going to be. I know when it's going to be. Yeah. So we're doing. Well, Phil can tell you. Phil's excited. This is his thing. This is his child.
Yeah, that's right. Come to Vegas, talk to us on Sunday. You'll know all the details.
Yeah. So we're for okay, fine. Phil, gosh, the amount of work that's gone into this, and the amount of times that I've had to say this is confidential, and now that's all I get. Okay, fine, I'll do it. So, here's the deal. We know where the show is going to be in 2025. Obviously, we're not going to tell anybody that until Sunday. But one of the things that we've been trying to do, literally since the beginning, since the first Vegas, is to announce next year's show at this year's show. We've just never quite been able to do it. Finally, this year, we are able to do it. That's thanks to the support of the community and people basically registering early, so we know there's actually enough interest to keep doing this. And so, thanks to all that, thanks to the survey feedback that we've been able to capture and reaching out to folks, we've booked the venue. We know where it's going to be, and on Sunday at 2:30, we are going to actually be able to announce right there and then where next year will be. So that'll be a lot of fun. Obviously, we're not going to tell you in advance because we have to keep it a good surprise, but it'll be a lot of fun. And if you're ever interested in like learning more about like why is this show the way it is and why do we pick certain venues over other venues in certain cities, this will be a great presentation for you to be part of because we'll be sharing a little bit about the decision making process and why we actually did it the way that we did. So that's Sunday at 2:30 and it will be in the Brasilia room if you're there in Vegas. We'll also be streaming that live on YouTube for anybody who wants to watch it.
So if you need another reason to come to the show,
Yes.
purely just come to learn about next year's show, why not?
Yeah, that's it.
Amazing. Okay, so before we go, we've been talking now for a good half an hour about Flight Sim Expo 2024. We haven't even mentioned when it's happening other than June. So please just give that final shout out for dates, where they can buy tickets, and just the last thing you want people to remember about why they should come to Flight Sim Expo 2024.
You're up, Phil.
Oh boy, so I get to handle
You
this
know
one.
you know this. You know where it is. You know the dates. You know the website.
Yeah. Website's FlightSimExpo.com. That's where you can get all the details about the seminar schedule in just a few days. Maybe after this has already been posted, we'll be actually releasing the floor plan, which is going to have all of the exhibitors, where everybody's actually going to be, the lay of the land. So if you're already planning to attend, make sure you go check that out. And if you're not already planning to attend, go there, see who's going to actually be there in person, and then go buy your ticket. So that's all at FlightSimExpo.com. Of course, the dates, June 21st to 23rd, 2024. And that'll be at the Rio Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas.
Nice. That was good.
Nicely done.
Yeah. And I'll just add to that, I think two small things. Number one, if you're the kind of person who has like a big network of flight sim friends and people are coming to the show already, then that's awesome. And obviously, you come to meet them. But if you're not that kind of person, like that's kind of why we've tried to build these activities around the show. And that's why we have a Discord that you can join. So if it's your first time coming to the show or you don't know a whole lot of people, that is totally cool because this event is all about other people who share your hobby. We put the airport code if you want to of where you live on your badge, and so you can walk around the room and be like, oh, you're from Vegas, well, I'm from Vegas, and there's a really easy way to kind of hit it off. Or you're from Vegas, I used to live here 5 years ago, or did you live, right? So you're already making a conversation, and that's not even to say, well, what sim do you fly and what do you like to fly in your sim? These are all questions that you can't ask real people in your daily life because it's such a niche hobby, but you can at this kind of a show. And actually on Friday, as part of our welcome reception, we're actually going to have a few tables set up with the idea being go find some people from your local area. And if you guys want, maybe you can set up a club. We have about 5 or 6 different clubs of locals who get together a couple times a year just because they've met at shows like this one. So that's something that we're really trying to encourage if you're maybe not somebody who knows a whole lot of other people coming to this show just yet. And then I guess my last thought would be, because we haven't really talked a whole lot about the exhibitors, but there's so many different exhibitors there. By the time this comes out, you'll be able to see the full floor plan, have a look at what all is going on at the event. And if you have a couple minutes to go to the website, especially if you're planning to come, just do spend a few minutes like thinking through what does my weekend look like. Like you almost want to just spend a bit of time to plan, because there is so much going on there. You don't want to miss out on this, that, or the other thing. So good thing to do if you've already made the decision to show up. And if not, it's not too late. It's a very easy show to get to. Book that flight to Vegas, book your hotel stay at the Rio, get your FlightSimExpo tickets, those 3 things, and you're all set for the weekend. So please do give it some thought. And if you can't make it in person, you can still help support the show with the online registration. And as Phil eloquently said, our website's FlightSimExpo.com.
Amazing. Guys, thank you so very much. It is going to be a matter of weeks until I see you guys in Vegas.
Crazy.
Can't wait. There's still so much to plan and so much to do. But ultimately, the end result is always worth it because these shows are always so expertly done by yourselves. And obviously, your army of volunteers who just help make sure everything runs smoothly. So, a big shout out to those guys as well, because honestly, without them, this show still wouldn't happen because they're always on hand to answer questions, direct people. They're going to do floor tours as well. So, if you're brand new to flight simulation, they're going to be able to show you kind of what these developers are and what they do. I'm still rambling on about what's happening in the
There's
show.
so much
just so
going on. It's
to know.
crazy. I know. Yeah.
But yeah, like Phil and Evan said, check out their website, FlightSimExpo.com, get those tickets, get yourself to the show, stop by the FS Elite booth, stop by our stage as well and say hi. And it just leaves me to say, look forward to seeing you all in June this year.
See you in a couple weeks.
See ya.